welcome to our Biz Huddle podcast. I'm your host, Mitch Cuthbert, Creative Director at Baker Creative. Betty Collins, a certified public accountant, started her career in public accounting in 1988. Today, she's a director for Brady Ware and Company, a business finance service firm where she's a co-leader of the long-term services team. Betty is the member of the National Association of Women Business Owners, partner of the Women Small Business Accelerator, Better Business Bureau of the Central Ohio board member, president of the Community Involvement Corporation of Gahanna, and treasurer for the Ohio Women's Coalition. She's a graduate of the Mount Vernon Nazarene College and a member of both the American Institute and Ohio Society of Certified Public Accountants. Welcome, Betty, to the podcast.
So we have Betty Collins from Brady Ware, and we are so excited to have her here today. And thank you so much for your time. And we wanted to kind of get your take on what the biggest error you see other women-owner businesses make, since you really do have a lot of connections with that in the community.
Yeah, I mean, I work at tremendous. First of all, thank you for allowing me to be here today. And, women business owners have a certain ambition to them that men don't have, right? So, and it's why right now, over 40% of women businesses that are starting are for women. And so you go, well, okay, so why isn't there the success that men business owners have? And it's not because women don't know what they're doing or men are better. Some of it is just the characteristics they have. And they're first of all nurturers by just the human part of them. Women tend to want to be, I can take care of this, I can take care of you, I can go on. And they don't know how to say no. And leveraging is not something they do well because, hey, they know how to do this and they just want to get it done. And unfortunately, what that does is overwhelms them and they go through the meltdown, right? We all have those. Because you're trying to do all this and it's not easy. So that is probably the biggest thing I see. They want to take care of it all, and they don't leverage. You can have it all. You just can't do it all. And you won't have it all if your attempt is, well, it comes down to me. No. Your team around you, your support systems around you have to be there. And a lot of times women are the support system. So that's probably the most common thing I see. And then they either make a decision to go, you know what, I got to let go. Or they keep trying to do the same things they always do.
Right.
And then they have the same results.
I understand. So how has the CFO role changed since you've entered the profession? How is that?
Oh my goodness. Yeah, I mean, I entered the profession in 1988. And there was a finance accountant in the room, right? And then, of course, CPAs came into play, MBAs came into play, and that over the 90s became a trend, obviously, that you must get that CPA, you must have an MBA, or even, a master's of some kind in accountancy or tax or whatever. Right. And so the CFO really 9 times out of 10 is really ended up being the COO. In other words, they're running every operation under the sun, and financials kind of is, that's a given. But then they handle health insurance renewals. Okay, could that be an HR function? They may handle, here's all of I'm going to be at the board meeting and take the minutes. You name it, they get involved with 100 other things besides the financial operations. Mm-hmm. And that's what you see more of. Now, a lot of companies who are a little more progressive say, okay, I'm going to have a COO and a CFO, and I'm going to have somebody who handles all operational things, and then I'm going to have a CFO who truly handles accounting and numbers and budgets and, making sure that there's a financial position that is solid. Unfortunately, it's hard to afford both of those, So, and a lot of times the person that they promote to be the COO, then finance becomes kind of that last thing on the list. So I find that, and then, the accounting department definitely looks different now in corporations. I don't care what size you are, it looks different. But I mean, there are places that all they do is CFO contract work, and there's CPAs that do that. They contracted, they come in for a couple of days a week because they're not big enough to have a finance department with but they may still want to have an accounts payable and accounts receivable and collections and all those different things. So the CFO role has changed into an operations. It's a hybrid now, and that puts a lot of stress. That job is very stressful.
Yeah. What concerns do you have about governmental regulations and potentially higher taxes changing the way we do business in the future, or small business?
So government regulations are a necessary thing. First of all, I want to say that there's certain regulations that need to be out there. Otherwise, it would just be a free-for-all. You can't have that.
Right.
But government regulations can make things really, really hard. Let's use the example right now of the PPP loans. So everybody gets these PPP loans during COVID. We shut down, the economy's down, the market, goes to 18,000. It's now whatever, 30. And everyone kind of went, oh my gosh. And so they immediately said, what help is the government going to do? The government actually really pulled through, right? They threw $6 trillion at our economy because they wanted to make sure it was preserved. So, by the way, that was all debt. So it's not a good thing. So, but what happened in PPP then is, okay, we're going to give you this money. And they got it to employers very quickly, right? They got it to businesses very quickly. And then they started coming out with, now that you've got it, by the way, here's the guidance. And here's another guidance. And here's another guidance. And here's more guidance. And the guidance is like, don't complain that you got a $1 million loan and it's going to be forgiven and it's now going to be taxable income. But there's so much guidance now to it that because they had to get money out to you quickly. And so it just convolutes everything.
Right.
The other, overregulation, of course, is what is going to be that tax bill for people. Mm-hmm. And that's a huge, huge concern. And right now, with where we are politically, is who's going to run the Senate? We don't know. Who is president? I think we know that one. But so right now you have this whole mix of, so what does that mean? And the markets are responding. I've read a lot with the Wall Street Journal as well as Epic Times, and I watch Fox Business. Mm-hmm. And those guys are all saying, a lot of it is that, there was this red wave that came into play, and the red wave will be kinder to business, and the markets are still just rallying everywhere. Mm-hmm. But there's just that uncertainty. And when government can't make a decision quick and Congress can't get along to make decisions, just like this last stimulus package took way too long, it holds back, it ties the hand of the business owner.
So Betty, how hard is that to do forecasting? I mean, it's got to be so hard.
Oh, it's very hard to do, but you can't not do it. Mm-hmm. You have to sit and say, what do I know today? Mm-hmm. And what's my best guess about tomorrow? Mm-hmm. And so right now, while I'm doing a lot of tax planning, because it's December and everyone's doing a bunch of spending, this is a year of, do we count PPP this year or not? Because if you've got a $100,000 loan and now you're a 24% taxpayer, you're going to put 24% of that back.
Right.
Or do I go, well, these are good tax rates because we know what they are.
Right.
And if there's more, if the Senate changes and Biden is the president, not that that's a bad thing, I'm not saying that, but everybody and their brother believes there'll be tax increases. So do I pay the tax now while it's a lower rate, or do I wait? And, and so it's a lot of what ifs. Mm-hmm. Or, hey, we got through the first year of COVID, but we're probably now realistically still another 6 to 9 months away. So am I going to keep being able to survive? And so I've got to use my cash wisely. Do I want to give it away for taxation? Do I save it for taxation? So there's all that. There's a lot of what ifs. So the question you should be asking is, okay, now what? Mm-hmm. Now what to everything? And if you want answers, you got to ask questions.
Sure.
So.
Okay. So do you feel your CF role will become more of a chief restructuring officer now?
Yeah, I mean, it could. Because when you say restructuring, you mean just, hey, we're gonna overhaul how we're doing business?
I guess it would kind of depend on what the business vision is, right? That could mean a lot of different things, right?
Yeah, I mean, one of the questions when I talk about now what is, who is my customer now? Is it the same customer? Is it a different customer? What's my revenue now? Is it the same revenue? Is it a different revenue?
Mm-hmm.
Is this what is not coming back in the future?
Ooh.
So for instance, I use restaurants as an example because they've been hit so very, very hard. I just want to make sure we keep restaurants alive because I love to eat out. But restaurants right now, if they didn't master curbside, they're done. If they, and I mean, and even the price changes because of what they have to do curbside or deliver it.
Mm-hmm.
So they would be done with that. So is it ever going to come back that you can have your restaurant packed with a waiting for an hour? Probably not. Is every other table going to keep being the norm for a while? It probably is. So you have to be asking what's coming back and what's not coming back.
Right.
And is my customer still there? Did I pivot? Did I miss opportunity during this time? So that when you're going forward, yeah, your CFOs, your COOs, your CEOs are all going, what's now our strategy? We better know.
Mm-hmm.
Or because hope is not a strategy. I hope everything works out by the spring. Well, hope is not a strategy. You got to make sure that you are definitely being strategic, and your CFO has to be that strategy. They have to be that person.
Now, have you noticed any shifts in the patterns of some of your customers, I should say?
Absolutely. So I have somebody who services food. So when this first happened and restaurants shut down, they panicked. They're like, what are we going to do? I have $1 million worth of produce that's going to sit here and probably rot.
Oh.
Or I can be a hero and take it to the food bank, but I'm out $1 million. That was the first 3 weeks of COVID. Then you said, oh, but casual dining is killing it. And that's really our customer. We do a ton of, when I say casual dining, I'm talking about pizza,
Mm-hmm.
I'm talking about drive-through foods, I'm talking about, where you can easily go get the food and bring it home and heat it up. You probably don't do that with Cameron Mitchell, but you do that with Bob Evans.
Right.
Okay. You can heat up their stuff. So, I think you have to look at it as, how do I want to say this? That you have to be looking at your customer's customer. So in this case I sell food to people. So he's my customer. And now I'm going, how is this guy going to survive? Even if I get him $1 million of PVP, because who is his customer?
Right.
So his customer is all of a sudden, he's like, I can't sell now food fast enough. So his whole first 3 weeks to a month were like, oh my gosh. And then by June, we're going, wow, this is going to be a record year.
Right.
Because that's where people are eating. So I have to know my customer, and then I got to know who's his customers are. Because if he's not going to make it, I need to help him figure out how to pivot.
Mm-hmm.
So strategy and how we do accounting, advisory, all of it has changed. And it's going to continue to change until we can say, get your annual vaccine for COVID if people want to do that, right?
Right. So technology and cybersecurity and all that, and then you've got COVID on top of all of it. How do you guys deal with that? Because that's a lot.
Right. So the first we come out, everyone all of a sudden learns the thing called Zoom, right? We all learned Zoom. And what we learned was people could easily hack into Zoom calls. And then we learned that we needed certain kind of business accounts with Zoom calls. And then we learned we needed passwords with Zoom calls. And then I could go on and on and on. And then we learned that people are really tired of seeing 20 people on screen. And we then get tired of looking at screen, and we have to stay more focused and engaged. And we're much more tired when we're done with a day of Zoom calls, which is what my entire day has been today. But it's what gets you in the marketplace. It's what keeps you connected right now. Right. So you have to have the right Zoom. You have to have it so people don't hack in. And then because nothing now is paper, I mean, our tax season, we closed our offices March 16th. Well, guess what? We have no way of printing your tax return anymore. Believe me, there's tons of people that want a printed tax return.
Oh.
I was amazed as the person who runs our office and was at our office during COVID, especially those first 90 days. I was the only person going there for the sake of mail and people still coming to the office, et cetera, because we were considered essential.
Yes.
I was totally amazed at how people still print checks to us, like a lot. So I was like, wow. But now people are probably doing much more with online banking.
Yeah.
Because all their people are home. So online banking has its own, set of issues. We now had to send out thousands of returns that went not by paper or not where come pick up your stuff and sign it. It's now here's an electronic portal with your stuff, and here's how you have to download it. Here's the password for it.
Right.
And by the way, you need to protect this. I mean, that's changed now for everybody because we are doing everything technically, right? We're doing almost everything online.
Mm-hmm.
So how do you protect that? How do you do that? So your company has to have that together, or you have to have a good partner that says, I'm going to make sure we have you covered.
So in this uncertain space, do you think it's worth taking a closer look at business interruption insurance or having a greater strategy of a contingency planning role in your company?
Absolutely. I mean, in the US, we've never been in this situation, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so my generation's never had a pandemic. My generation's never really had like World War II, and we had all, when we had 9/11 and things like that. We've never had something like this.
Yeah.
What I think we learned was we didn't have PPE, we didn't have product, we didn't have systems for a pandemic. I think we now have a lot of systems for a pandemic. So we probably covered a lot of that. We still have a long way to go. But I think that people are much more ready for the now what. And when it comes to insurance, and that's an interesting question. Do you know there is pandemic insurance? And a lot of people thought business interruption will cover this. It didn't. Pandemic insurance does. Well, who gets pandemic insurance? Because we haven't had pandemic since the 1800s or early 1900s,
right.
And they probably then. Because I have a client who's an insurance agent, and they're like, people are calling me going, where's my business interruption insurance? So what you have to know is, do I need business interruption insurance? But what does it cover?
Mm-hmm.
And now to get pandemic insurance probably is impossible because we're still in the middle of the pandemic.
Mm-hmm.
So it'll be interesting to see what businesses do after this is considered not a pandemic. Are they going to invest in that? Because can and will this happen again?
Well, we hope not. God.
Right. Well, after 9/11, a lot of people talked about terrorist insurance, and they didn't have anything. And that's not common, but there is a lot more of that being sold because what happens? Well, haven't had another attack like 9/11, so how will we handle another pandemic? I'm certain we will handle things different, especially from the beginning.
Yes.
And things like that. But pandemic insurance and business interruption insurance, 99% of it doesn't cover a pandemic.
So my last question to you is, from everything that's been crazy from this year, what was the biggest 2 takeaways that you learned from it?
What I learned is I need to be asking now what the rest of my career as a business owner.
Mm-hmm.
And never take for granted that you come into a new decade with really grandiose ideas because you just had a banner 19 and 2020 is going to be all these things.
Mm-hmm.
And within a couple of months, February 29th is my husband's birthday. So he gets a birthday every 4 years. We go out to eat at this restaurant we really enjoy, which is Jeff Ruby's.
Mm-hmm.
And we're eating really expensive steak and just having a wonderful time, and life is good and we're appreciative. And 2 weeks later, we can't find ground beef for a taco kit.
Oh, yeah.
So I've learned that it's a now what, and it's not a matter of if, but when. And you need to really enjoy the moment you have. And you can't live in fear either. I can't live that what's the next pandemic.
Mm-hmm.
But you certainly can be grateful for the moment and keep asking now what do we got to do next and before. Nobody could have predicted this pandemic or talked about it. Nobody could have said this is how you prepare for 2020. What we were all doing was going, 19 was good, 2020 is going to be even better. Let's live and let's keep going, right? Instead it was, let's be grateful for what we have, and let's figure out how we're going to navigate through times like this and be ready next time. So that's probably my biggest takeaway. The other takeaway is, things can be done differently. I kind of like people not sneezing all over me at the grocery store. I kind of like the barriers at Cameron Mitchell restaurants where you have a glass between you and the other people. I kind of like that. I kind of like the fact that, we've slowed down a little bit, maybe too much. It's been very, very difficult. I don't think isolation is good, but slowing down has been good for us in that way. So those are my big takeaways. And the other thing is we tend to react almost crazily instead of taking time to go, okay, let's find out what this is. Let's find out why we're wearing masks and figure it out. Let's find out why schools have to be closed or can they be opened. And let's take a little more time to breathe and think things through. I feel for these governors and mayors who have had to deal with it, but those are my takeaways. It's not bad to slow down, appreciate what you have now, and ask what if, or ask now what a lot more. And don't live in fear with it. Those are my takeaways. I don't know if that's too much.
No, I think it's great. So, because everybody deals with the stress in their own way. Is there a way you deal with your stress? Do you run, or is there something what's your thing?
Yeah. For stress for me, I eat. That's how I deal with it. But everyone does, everyone does it differently. We had a real opportunity where all of a sudden home with nothing to do, everything's closed. Everybody could have gone into a full workout, right? They could have really worked with health. They could have, but people weren't. This was just something that for me, it was stress. Not so much running away as I just want it over. Like, please, can we have this over?
Yes.
It's not how life works,
Understood.
So.
Well, thank you so much for your time, and I appreciate all the advice, and I'm sure that a lot of people will be able to get a lot and learn a lot from that. So thank you.
Well, thanks for having me today. I'm glad to be here.
Thank you.
If you're interested in learning more, visit our website at bakercreative.co.